So I've actually had this Honda Passport C70 for a little while now. It's just kind of been sitting waiting for me to do something with it. It was just a free Craigslist find. These were also called Super Cubs in other parts of the world, and they're the most produced motor vehicle of all time. Battery is dead, so first I'm going to pull that battery out and throw it on the trickle charger. I'll let that sit for a little while. Even if the gas is a little bit stinky, I don't think I would hesitate to run it. So yeah, it doesn't smell bad at all. So I'm probably gonna go ahead and let that be. Everything seems fairly well cared for on this bike. I think it was garaged. I don't know if there was like an electrical problem or something. Some of the wiring looks a little janky, so that could be what caused whoever owned this to give up. I don't know. Maybe. I'm gonna go ahead and check the oil, see what we got going on here. According to the dipstick, the crankcase is full, and the oil actually looks to be pretty good quality. It's not real black or anything like that, so I think that it was changed on time. Pull off this fairing and see if there's anything that's going to cause this bike to catch on fire. So the bottom half of the air box goes here. It's sitting in my box of parts, so I'm probably going to go ahead and install that after I figure out if this thing's running or not. Filter looks clean enough to use. Let's see what the spark plug looks like, just because. Since I've got it out, I'll see what the gap is just for fun. So the spec that is given for this plug, according to the maintenance manual, is 24 thousandths to 28 thousandths, and this one is right at 25. So it looks like this bike has been reasonably well taken care of, which is surprising. Typically someone that would put in the effort to care for this little bike would probably want to sell it for more than nothing. Alright, so that all looks good. I've got a throttle cable that is much too long. Whoever installed it forgot to cut it shorter. But we'll go ahead and check the functionality on it. You can probably barely see it, but I'm checking the throttle function, and it does in fact work. So I have control over the engine. I like that this bike has an electric start and a kick start. That's nifty. At this point, I can take a look at what my battery is at. So we're at 12.7 volts. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that this will probably start the bike. Let's see what happens. Oh, of course. Forgot to turn on the fuel. It's idling a little bit high. I gotta play with the speed a little bit, but it's not smoking like crazy or anything like that. So I'm tempted to hop on and ride it, but there's some other stuff I gotta check first. So I found that taking the cap off of this little port made the engine run a little bit better. I think that it's a crankcase ventilation type thing. It also was a little bit strange the way it was idling. I think it has something to do with how there's so much extra slack in the throttle cable, like it would kind of rev hang a little bit. So I went ahead and pulled the battery again since I have electrical problems, and I'm going to try and figure those out. I'm going to go ahead and shorten this throttle cable now. Next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and hook up the choke cable. There's nothing attached. The actual parts I need should be in this box. Like, I've got a cable here. I'd imagine that's what this is. So I'll see if that's the right size. Next thing I'm going to do is figure out why the headlight's not working. I'm going to pull top of the bars off here and see what I got going on underneath. So the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and button up the air cleaner. I think I can reinstall the fairing, get that off my floor so it's out of the way. In that department, I know that I'm going to need at least a new headlight bulb, and I'm going to have to rewire some stuff. It's pretty ghetto under here. I don't really know what's going on. And then I know that the tail light and brake light don't work. The turn signals sort of work, and the horn does work. Speedo does not work. Alright, so obviously the headlight's not going to do anything. The horn does work. The turn signals, the right side just does that. And the tail turn signal right side does nothing. The left-hand turn signals work, so that's nice. I don't have to do anything there. So the brake lights do not work. Neither does the regular tail light. Alright, so time to try and figure out why. Alright, so I got the right side signals functioning just by replacing the bulb. Alright, now I got the new tail light bulb installed. Next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and get this thing up on blocks so that I can replace these tires. I don't want to try and sell this thing with the amount of checking that's in the sidewalls. Also, the Speedo cable is missing the little nut that attaches it to the underside of the speedometer, so I got to try and figure out a way to do that as well, but it's coming along. So I pulled the entire Speedo cable out and now we're good. It just slipped down way down where I couldn't see it, so I just pulled the whole cable and now this thing should work just fine. So I printed out this manual that I found for free online, and I'm going to include it when I sell the bike, but I opened up the wiring diagram page and I used it to kind of make sense of everything that's under here. And it looks like it hasn't been hacked up too much. There were some wires that I pulled out that shouldn't have been there and aren't doing anything, but these connections are pretty sketchy, and so I'm going to go ahead and clean this up a little bit and do some soldering. All of this disaster has been figured out now, and with any luck at all, I should be able to hook everything up and it'll work just fine. I'm going to have to get some new bulbs. I'm going to need these little pill bulbs here, and then these regular instrument panel bulbs. Still need to get a new sealed beam headlight, so I'm going to try to do that. Speedo, I determined it's good. I'm going to get the new tires mounted on the rims and then reinstall those. Looked at the chain, it looks pretty good, so I'm going to let it be. When you go to pull the rear wheel, you don't have to take the chain off or anything like that. There's just this funky little drive piece, and I think that's pretty clever on Honda's part. So next thing I gotta do is set the chain tension. New tires are on, brakes are adjusted. Axles are torqued, everything is assembled as it should be. Alright, so I got some presents in the mail here. Here's my new headlight. One thing that's nice about it is, since it's an OEM, all the wires are the right color, so I don't have to mess around with that. I just have to hook it up. And then I have my new pill bulbs as well. They're a little bit different than the old ones, but I think they should still fit okay. There should still be enough clearance. Gonna go ahead and get all of this installed and then see if it all works. Alright, all those cute little expensive bulbs are installed. Hopefully all of this nonsense works. So now I'm going to go ahead and hook up the headlight. Now I can go ahead and put the cluster back together. Alright, so I went for a little spin around the block, and it's not running super great at idle or at low speed. So I'm in the troubleshooting section of the service manual that I have here, and the first thing it has me do is check the timing and the valve clearance. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So this thing still runs like trash, so I'm just gonna see what the fuel strainer looks like just out of curiosity. There's a lot of crap in there. That's what was in the bottom. My gas is very yellow for some reason. So I have a sneaking suspicion that the reason I'm having a hard time tuning this bike is because the gas is starting to go bad. So I'm gonna go ahead and flush it out and put some fresh fuel in it and see if that improves anything. And if I'm just gonna put a little bit of gas in there, shake the bike a little bit, and then flush it. And I'll probably do that 2 or 3 times until the fuel coming out looks a little cleaner. Alright, so after that fiasco, this thing still runs like trash. So I have a feeling that the carburetor was probably assembled incorrectly or something like that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it, reassemble it, see if it was jetted incorrectly or if there's just something really dumb going on. As you can see, both of my fuel lines are disconnected. They should be pouring gasoline right now because the tank is full. However, they're not. And I have a theory as to why. I think that my vented gas cap isn't venting, because when I remove it, here's what happens. And I replace it, no flow. So I'm accidentally having a vacuum. You can see this jet needle is super bent, and also it was at some point over torqued. As you can see, it is pretty bent, and it's also got a bunch of marring from people improperly setting the idle speed. So I think this thing is getting hung up in the bore that it rides in, and then that's what's causing me to have such an inconsistent idle, and then the bike revs by itself. But I think what happens is this just gets stuck and it causes fuel to flow when it shouldn't. I'm slowly kind of narrowing it down. Now I've got flow thanks to removing the gas cap, and I've got a new gas cap on the way. Alright, so I actually ended up digging through my box of extra parts here, and I found that I've got a selection of different jets and jet needles. Basically what happened is the needles were mismatched, and I'm going to see what happens if I match them up so that they actually seal, and then put it back together and throw it in the bike and try it out. So the manual calls for 1500 plus or minus 100 RPM. I don't know how accurate my little tack here is, but this thing runs about 1,000,000 times better than it did prior to me correcting that needle jet and rebuilding the carb and replacing the gas cap. So a lot of very weird issues that are a result of somebody working on this thing that didn't really know what they were doing. But I think this thing is definitely going to be flippable now. It idles good. I'm going to take it for a spin around the block, bring it back after it's warmed up, and do a final little tune on it. I'm just going to give the bike a nice cleanup, essentially. Like, there's some stuff I want to take off. Like, that sticker is kind of unattractive, so I'm going to take that off. These need to get wire wheeled, so I'm going to hit them. Like, this switch is super dirty, just standard stuff, you know, like there's a bunch of grease on the bike and things like that. So I'm going to get it all cleaned up. And just like that, it looks good from 10 feet. Not bad, looks decent, wheels shined up okay. This is now ready to sell. As soon as I take it for one more test ride, I'm going to go ahead and make the listing and see how much money I can make. And there it is, one 1982 Honda Passport C70 ready for sale. So I'm going to take some beauty shots with this lovely wall of flowers in the background. So I got test ride out of the way, ran great. I got some nice beauty shots of it to put in my Craigslist ad. And now I'm going to go ahead and make the ad and then see if anybody wants to buy it. And there it is. I had it listed for several months and I got a lot of lowballers, which is pretty typical for Craigslist. But eventually I did find a buyer